Welcome back to Storyova, the place where everyday moments turn into unforgettable stories. If you love heartfelt tales about family, secrets, and the little things that change everything, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe and become part of our growing Storyova family, because today's story might just remind you of someone you love. This is Grandma's Wi-Fi password. When Grandma first asked what Wi-Fi was, everyone laughed. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind where the whole family gathered at her small but spotless house. The table was full of biryani, fresh roti, and her famous Kia cooling by the window. The cousins were sitting on the floor, phones in their hands, thumbs moving faster than their mouths. The uncles were arguing about politics, and the aunties were whispering in the kitchen. Grandma stood in the middle of it all, holding a tray of tea, watching everyone stare down at glowing screens. "What is this Wi-Fi?" she asked. "It's Wi-Fi, Dottie," her youngest grandson, Samir, corrected without looking up. "It's internet, so we can use our phones." Grandma nodded slowly, as if she understood. "And this internet, it is more important than my Kia." Everyone laughed again. But that night, after everyone left and the house became quiet, Grandma sat alone in her wooden chair and thought about it. The next week, she did something no one expected. She called the cable company. 2 days later, a young technician arrived at her door. He looked confused when he saw the tiny house filled with embroidered cushions and framed black and white photos. "You want Wi-Fi, Auntie?" he asked. "Yes," she replied proudly. "The strongest one." By evening, Grandma had Wi-Fi. When the family found out, they were shocked. "You, Wi-Fi?" her eldest son asked, trying not to smile. "Yes," she said calmly. "Now when you all come, you don't have to use your mobile data." The next Sunday, the house was fuller than usual. Word had spread. "Dottie has Wi-Fi." The cousins whispered like it was treasure. As soon as they arrived, they kicked off their shoes and gathered around her. "What's the password?" Samir asked eagerly. Grandma adjusted her glasses. "Password?" "Yes, Dottie, the secret code." "Oh," she said thoughtfully. "I wrote it down." She walked slowly to her bedroom and returned with a small, folded piece of paper. She handed it to Samir. He unfolded it and read out loud. "Come sit with me." The room went quiet. "What?" One cousin laughed. "Is that really the password?" Grandma nodded. "Yes, all small letters. No spaces." Samir typed it in. "Connected." The cousins cheered and rushed back to their corners, screens lighting up their faces. Grandma watched them for a moment. Then she cleared her throat. "Now that you have Wi-Fi," she said softly, "you can sit with me too." They didn't hear her. Or maybe they pretended not to. Weeks passed. Every Sunday, the same ritual. They arrived, hugged her quickly, asked for the password. Though they all knew it by heart, no one disappeared into their screens. Grandma never changed it. "Come sit with me." One evening, as rain tapped gently against the windows, the power went out across the neighborhood. No lights. No fans. No Wi-Fi. The cousins groaned. "There's no internet. What are we supposed to do?" Grandma lit a candle and placed it in the center of the room. The warm glow softened the walls and made the house feel smaller, closer. "You can talk," she suggested. They shifted uncomfortably. "Talk about what?" Grandma began anyway. "When I was your age," she said, "we didn't have internet. We had stories." No one interrupted her this time. Maybe it was the darkness. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the way her voice sounded different. She told them about her childhood village. About climbing mango trees and falling into the river once. About the day she met their grandfather at a wedding, how he spilled tea on his own shoes because he was nervous. The cousins laughed. Not at a screen. At her. For the first time in months, they were looking at her face instead of their phones. The power didn't return for 3 hours. No one noticed. The next Sunday, something unusual happened. Samir arrived and didn't immediately ask for the password. He sat beside Grandma instead. "Dottie, he said. Tell me more about Dada. She smiled. The others slowly joined, phones still in their pockets. That evening, they talked again. About old traditions, about recipes, about mistakes, about dreams. When Samir finally pulled out his phone, it wasn't to scroll. Dottie, he said, can I record your stories? She blinked. Record? Yes, so we never forget. Her eyes softened. Okay, she whispered. The Wi-Fi password remained the same. Come sit with me. But something had shifted. The cousins started coming earlier. Sometimes even during the week. One brought a board game. Another brought printed photos to show her instead of just swiping through them. And Grandma. She started learning too. Samir taught her how to use a smartphone. Slowly, patiently. She learned how to video call her sister in another city. The first time she saw her sister's face on the screen, she cried. This internet, she said, wiping her tears, is magic. But she never forgot what it couldn't replace. One afternoon, Samir noticed something strange. Dottie, he said, holding his phone up. The Wi-Fi isn't connecting. Grandma frowned. What do you mean? It says incorrect password. That's impossible, she replied. It is the same. He checked the router. The password had changed. Curious, he went to her room. Dottie, he called gently. Did you change the password? She hesitated. Yes, why? She handed him a new piece of paper. He unfolded it slowly. Look at you, Ether. He felt something tighten in his chest. Dottie, she smiled softly. Sometimes you need reminders. That Sunday, the house felt different again. The cousins arrived, confused. What's the new password? Samir stood in the center of the room. It's look at Ether. They laughed at first. Then they understood. That evening, they didn't rush. They sat in a circle. They talked about school, about heartbreak, about fears they never admitted online. Grandma listened to every word. Months turned into a year. Story recording sessions became tradition. Samir created a small online channel just for family, uploading clips of Grandma's stories. It was private, just for them. But one day, by accident, he shared a short clip publicly. It was Grandma laughing while describing how she once chased a thief with a broom. Within days, thousands of people watched it. Comments flooded in. She reminds me of my grandmother. I wish I had recorded my Daddy's stories. Protect her at all costs. Samir showed Grandma. You're famous, he teased. She shook her head. No, I am just old. But her eyes sparkled. More videos followed. Not for fame. For memory. The Wi-Fi password changed one last time 2 years later. Samir was the first to notice again. He read it aloud slowly. Stay close. He walked to her room. She was sitting by the window, sunlight warming her silver hair. Dottie, he said softly, why did you change it? She reached for his hand. Because one day, she said gently, I won't be here. And I don't want you to remember my password. I want you to remember to stay close to each other. His throat tightened. Dottie, she squeezed his hand. Wi-Fi connects devices. Love connects people. That winter, Grandma's health began to fade. The house grew quieter. But it was never empty. The cousins visited daily now. Phones forgotten on tables. Stories told back to her instead. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Samir sat beside her bed. Dottie, he whispered, what's the password? Her eyes fluttered open. With the faintest smile, she answered, you already know it. A week later, she was gone. The house felt colder without her laughter echoing through the halls. At the next family gathering, no one asked for Wi-Fi. They didn't need to. Samir walked to the router anyway. He logged in, and for the last time, he changed the password. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't have to. Because when the cousins arrived and automatically tried to connect, their phones joined the network without asking. He had removed the password completely. No barriers. No reminders needed. They sat together in the living room, surrounded by framed photos and embroidered cushions. Samir played one of Grandma's recorded stories on the television. Her voice filled the room, warm, alive, laughing. They listened. Not through headphones. Together. And on the small router in the corner. The network name remained the same as the day she first installed it. Come sit with me. This has been where ordinary moments become stories that stay with you. And maybe tonight, before you ask for the Wi-Fi password, you'll sit a little closer to someone who matters. The first Eid without Grandma felt unreal. The house was decorated the way she used to decorate it, but something invisible was missing. The curtains were freshly washed. The silver trays were polished. The smell of sheer kurma filled the air. But no one was standing in the kitchen giving instructions in that soft but commanding voice. Samir arrived early that morning. He paused at the gate before walking in. For years, he had rung the bell and waited for her slow, careful footsteps. The way she would open the door halfway first, peeking out, pretending she didn't know who it was. This time, the door was already open. Inside, the cousins were gathered in the living room. Phones were on the table, unused. Samir walked straight to the router in the corner. It blinked quietly, as if nothing had changed. He opened his laptop and logged in again. He didn't know why. Maybe he just wanted to feel close to her. The network name still read, "Come sit with me." He hesitated for a moment, then clicked edit. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Slowly, carefully, he typed a new network name. Tell her the story. He saved it. When the others noticed the change, they looked at him. What does that mean? His cousin Aisha asked softly. Samir swallowed. It means, he said, we keep telling her stories. Even if she's not here. That afternoon, something beautiful happened. Instead of scrolling through social media between guests, the cousins gathered in a circle on the carpet. Each one shared a memory. Aisha talked about the time Grandma stayed up all night sewing her school costume because they couldn't afford to buy one. Imran confessed that he once broke her favorite teacup when he was 8 and blamed the cat. Grandma had known all along but never said a word. Everyone laughed through tears. Even the uncles joined. One by one, they realized something. Grandma hadn't just given them Wi-Fi. She had given them a ritual. A habit of gathering. A reminder that connection required intention. Weeks passed, and the habit didn't fade. Every Sunday, they still came. Not because they needed internet, but because they needed each other. One evening, Samir decided to do something bigger. He gathered the family around the old television. I want to show you something, he said. He opened the private channel where he had uploaded Grandma's stories over the past year. There were dozens of videos. Grandma laughing. Grandma teaching Aisha how to knead dough properly. Grandma explaining why she always kept a small amount of cash hidden inside a flour jar for emergencies. Grandma telling the story of how she and their grandfather built the house brick by brick. Samir clicked play on the very first video he had ever recorded. It was shaky. The sound was uneven. But her voice was clear. Are you recording? She had asked, squinting at the phone. Yes, Daddy. Then listen carefully, she said. One day, you will need this. The room fell silent. After the video ended, Samir looked around. I think we should share some of these publicly, he said. The uncles exchanged glances. What if people judge? One asked. Samir shook his head. They won't. They'll understand. He uploaded a short clip that night. Grandma explaining her Wi-Fi password for the first time. Come sit with me, she had said proudly. No spaces. Within hours, the video began spreading. Not because it was dramatic. Not because it was flashy. But because it was real. Comments poured in from strangers around the world. My grandma used to say the same thing. I'm calling my grandmother right now. I lost mine last year. Thank you for this. The family watched in disbelief. Grandma's simple message was reaching thousands of homes. People started sharing their own stories under the videos. Photos of grandmothers baking, voice recordings saved from old phones, handwritten recipes passed down through generations. It became something bigger than they expected. Samir created a series called Grandma's Lessons. Every episode featured one of her recorded stories. He didn't add dramatic music. He didn't add flashy edits. He just let her voice fill the screen. One night, as he was reading comments, he paused. A message caught his eye. "My grandmother lives alone. I never visit because I'm always busy. Tomorrow, I'm going to see her." Samir leaned back in his chair. He imagined Grandma smiling. Months later, the family decided to renovate her house slightly. Not to erase her presence, but to preserve it. They turned her bedroom into a small memory room. The walls were lined with framed photographs. Her favorite armchair remained by the window. And in the corner, on a small wooden shelf, they placed the router. Still blinking, still alive. They kept the Wi-Fi active. Not because they needed it, but because it felt wrong to disconnect something she had fought so hard to install. One afternoon, Aisha walked into the memory room and noticed something unusual. A small notebook on the bedside table. She picked it up. It was Grandma's handwriting. Inside were small notes, reminders, recipes, phone numbers. And on the last page, something that made her heart stop. A list titled, "Password Ideas." Underneath were several phrases written carefully. "Eat together, forgive quickly, call your mother, laugh loudly," and the last one, circled twice, "Love is the signal." Aisha ran to show Samir. He stared at the page for a long time. That evening, without announcing it, he logged into the router once more. He changed the network name again. "Love is the signal." When the family arrived that Sunday, they noticed immediately. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. They just sat closer. Years began to pass. The cousins grew up. Jobs, marriages, children. Life became busier than ever. But one thing remained sacred. Sunday at Grandma's house. Even after some family members moved to different cities, they would video call during the gathering. They placed the laptop on her old armchair so it looked like she was still hosting, and before every call ended, someone would ask the ritual question, "What's the password?" And everyone would answer together, smiling. Love says no. One winter evening, Samir received an invitation. A local community center wanted him to speak about the videos and their impact. He hesitated at first. He wasn't a speaker. He wasn't famous. He was just a grandson who pressed record. But he went. Standing on that small stage, he told them the story. How it started with laughter. How it became a lesson. How a simple Wi-Fi password changed the way his family saw each other. At the end, an elderly woman in the audience raised her hand. "I live alone," she said softly. "My grandchildren don't visit much. Do you think this would work for me?" Samir smiled. "It's not about the Wi-Fi," he replied gently. "It's about the invitation." The woman nodded, eyes shining. Weeks later, she sent him a photo. A small router on her living room table. Network name, Samir showed the family. Grandma's idea was traveling. Not through cables, through hearts. One night, years later, Samir found himself sitting alone in the memory room. The house was quiet. The router blinked softly beside him. He picked up his phone and opened the very first video again. Grandma's voice filled the room. "Are you recording?" "Yes, Dottie." "Then listen carefully." He closed his eyes. He realized something he hadn't understood before. Grandma had known. She had known time was limited. She had known they were drifting into their own digital worlds. And instead of complaining, instead of scolding, she had created a bridge. A password that was really a prayer. A network that was really a family. Samir stood up and walked to the router one last time that night. He didn't change the name. He didn't need to. Because the lesson was no longer inside the device. It was inside them. The next Sunday, the house was louder than ever. Children running. Laughter echoing. Phones occasionally used for photos, not escape. Samir's little niece tugged at his sleeve. "Uncle," she asked innocently, "what's Wi-Fi?" The room burst into laughter. Samir knelt down beside her. "Wi-Fi," he said softly, glancing at the blinking router, "is something that connects things." She tilted her head. "Like glue." He smiled. "Yes, like glue." She thought for a moment. "And what connects people?" He looked around at his family. At the empty armchair by the window. At the sunlight streaming in. "Love," he answered. That night, as the family prepared to leave, no one rushed. No one stared at a screen. They hugged longer. They promised to return sooner. And in the quiet, after everyone left, the router blinked steadily in the corner of the memory room. Lovest the signal. Not just a password, a legacy. And somewhere beyond what eyes can see, if stories truly echo where love lives on. Perhaps Grandma smiled, knowing that the strongest connection in her house was never the internet. It was them. And it always would be.